Today I'm going to inform you about cerebral palsy and how it affects communication. So today, my specific purpose for this speech is to tell you how cerebral palsy affects communication, to inform you of this, and to also inform you about how speech therapy helps develop communication skills. Did you know that 1 in 4 people with cerebral palsy cannot talk? This is astounding to me because of the fact that I have cerebral palsy personally. It only affects me very mildly. I am able to talk, I am able to walk, I am able to do all those things that others cannot with the same disability. But the biggest thing to me is that 1/4 of the people with cerebral palsy cannot talk. They cannot communicate. They cannot tell their parents what they want when they want to eat something. They can't express themselves. It's very, very, very important that we get the idea wrapped around our heads that there has to be a solution to this problem of people with cerebral palsy not being able to communicate effectively, and I'll show you the solution. Now, in my speech today, I'm going to inform you of 3 points. The first point I'm going to talk about is the causes of cerebral palsy. What causes cerebral palsy? How does that all play in to everyday life? The second point I'm going to make today is how speech therapy can help people with cerebral palsy overcome the barrier that they face communicatively and speaking wise. And lastly, I'm going to inform you of the effectiveness of speech therapy and how that all goes into play. Is it worth it? Is it not? Those kinds of things. So starting off with the first main point. Cerebral palsy is caused mainly by the fact that the baby is born early, born prematurely. Personally, I was born at 25 weeks. And if you're any kind of, if you hope to go into the medical field one day or know the slightest thing about a baby and when they're supposed to be born, that is extremely early. And I'm blessed to be alive and blessed to be standing here giving you the speech today. But I digress. And so this quote by Griffin says that Noetzel and Miller 12 report that 75% to 90% of cerebral palsy cases start before or during delivery, and 10% to 25% of the cases of cerebral palsy occur after birth. So what this means is that if the mother is giving birth at a very, very early stage in her pregnancy, the doctors will have to inform her that more than likely her baby will have cerebral palsy. And again, it affects everything from that point on. It affects medical things, surgeries, just the baby's ability to do normal things that other babies born on time can do, their weight, everything. A lot of factors go into that, and just the journey set before them to raise the child up into someone that can be something in this world and can contribute to society is just expanded a little bit bigger because of their complications that this brings. So my second point I'm going to make today is about how speech therapy can help people with cerebral palsy. As I stated before, people with cerebral palsy have communication problems. Most of them do. 25% of them do. So we have to find a solution to this problem, and speech therapy is, in fact, the answer. And so, in my opinion, speech therapy helps the child, the adult with cerebral palsy, because it teaches them one-on-one, on a one-on-one basis, to form words, to articulate sounds, to do everything they possibly can to communicate, because they need that skill to go out in the real world and to go buy things, to go speak for themselves, what they want to eat. If they're at a restaurant, let's say McDonald's, they have to go to the drive-thru confidently, knowing that this is what I want to eat. And they have to express that to the employee. They have to express their feelings, their thoughts, in school, wherever that may be, any place. Communication is a must. And just because they have cerebral palsy doesn't mean that they are hindered from the ability to talk, communicate. And that's why speech therapy is so important. And so, as I quoted right here, by Pennington, speech therapy to help children control their breath support, to create a stronger speech signal in which speech sounds are more clearly differentiated, and to speak at a steady rate. And I'm going to stop here for a second to explain, because as it says up there, speech therapy helps children control their breath support. Their breath support is vital because they can't say a trillion words in one breath. They have to be controlling that. They have to be monitoring that so that they can get words out effectively and in a timely manner without essentially gasping for air constantly. The speech signal part of that phrase is very important, because the speech signal is something that it indicates when they're speaking, and that signal in their brain is vital, because they have to have that. And the speech sounds, everything starts with sound. Vowels, consonants, all start with sounds, and that's things you learn early on in life. And these kids, even adults in today's society, have trouble. The ones with cerebral palsy have trouble with this very basic concept, and it isn't their fault. However, there is a solution. There's a solution in speech therapy. So lastly, the third point I'm going to make today about my informative speech over cerebral palsy and how it can affect communication is the effectiveness of speech therapy. We've talked today about the causes of cerebral palsy and how the communication barrier can be breached through speech therapy. And now we're going to examine the effectiveness of speech therapy. I'm sorry. So speech therapy can be effective with cerebral palsy patients. It improves the speech probes. It improves priorities in the mind. To explain, your mind prioritizes things based on immediate thoughts and that kind of thing. And so being able to speak should be a first-hand thing. They should be able to instantly, if they want to say, I want to go to the bathroom, I want to go to the store, that should, speech therapy immediately triggers that for them to say, Mom, Dad, I need to go do this, I need to go do that, with repetition over and a qualified speech therapist. That can very well be possible, because as the brain begins to prioritize more and more, speech and sounds can flow out of their mouth and in an effective manner. And as this quote from Ward says, all participants recorded changes on the trained and untrained speech probes for the intervention priorities targeted during both intervention phases of the study, with the initial treatment phase recording the greatest magnitude of change. And so in this picture right here, there is a boy with a speech probe in his mouth, and the speech probe helps the doctors, the therapists, examine how effectively they're speaking via sounds and just and via the sounds that they make in general. And so right here, there were changes in both trained, the people that were going to speech therapy versus the untrained, and again, the priorities in the mind, they both they increased after this in this study, and it says with the initial treatment phase recording the greatest magnitude of change. So when they were first tested, that's when they saw the greatest increase directly right after speech therapy. Again, backing up my point of how effective cerebral palsy can be in these cerebral palsy patients. Now, as I close today, I'm just going to remind you of the 3 main points that I covered today in my speech. Firstly, I covered the causes of cerebral palsy and how that's related to birth, to the family, to the doctors, to the medical journey that you're about to embark on, if that would be your case and where God takes you. And secondly, the second point I made today was about how speech therapy can help those with cerebral palsy with communication obstacles in their path from that point on. And lastly, I informed you about the effectiveness of speech therapy and how that all ties in together to support the main argument that I'm making today, that speech therapy can in fact improve communication in people with cerebral palsy. And like was presented with the speech probes, that's just one example of how effective speech therapy can be. And if you continue and if you persevere through any and all problems you may face, regardless of your circumstance, you will get to where you want to be. A personal example in closing is that even though I have cerebral palsy and it affects my left leg only, it's a very mild case compared to others. I don't let anything stop me from doing what I'm called to do, what I'm capable of doing. If I want to go run a marathon, I'll go run a marathon. If I want to have all A's for this last grading period in high school, I will go out and do that, and am doing that currently as we speak. So if I would leave you with any information at all, that's the best to take home with you today, it would be to never, ever, ever, ever let any limitations that you have stand in the way of you being great. Thank you all for watching. In these last 2 slides, I'm listing my sources and where I got them from, cited in APA format. So here's the works cited for the articles that I listed, or that I used in this PowerPoint, and the works cited for the pictures, also in APA format. Again, thank you for watching, and have a great rest of your evening.